The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
How are you, sir?
This is Pierre.
Oh.
I can't believe I'm talking to you, Dr. Ray the Great.
Well, I don't know about that.
I love listening to you. You have a personality just like my father.
I don't think you should feel helpless. You are helpless.
Doctor, I really appreciate that. That makes me feel a lot better.
You be at peace, or else I'm going to yell at you.
Trying to find a reason to speak to you. I think you're the best thing since sliced bread.
That Ray, he's something.
Thank you so much for what you're doing for all the parents out there.
I don't know what I can possibly do.
I don't either.
I'm getting my money worth, I think, at this phone call.
Now, from the studios of Living Bread Radio Network in Canton, Ohio, the hometown of Mother Angelica, here's Dr. Ray.
Feel a lot better. She got her money's worth and she paid for it. Now, sometimes people say to me, well, how long will this take to work? And I'll say, I have no idea. That'll be $100. Hey, if I had an idea, it'd be more. Nice to have you with me here on The Doctor Is In. This is E-Person Monday. Somebody said to me at a talk just recently, why do you call it E-Person? It's email, isn't it? And I don't know how many times I've explained that I'm very sensitive. Linguistically sensitive. Don't want to slip into gender patriarchalism. It's not a word, but I just made it up. That's called a neologism. You got to be sensitive. You go say male. Dr. Ray, it's not spelled M-A-L-E. It's spelled M-A-I-L. By the way, somebody did email me that. Oh, sorry, E-person me that. And I said, I know that. But just the sound of it could be interpreted as patriarchal. You can't be too careful nowadays. You got to really be careful what you say. You know, it's kind of interesting. I'm digressing here for a moment. Dictatorships, by and large, have severe restrictions on freedom of speech. But most of those restrictions are speaking against the government or the dictator. In America, we've got an interesting situation here. At some level, we can still speak about what's going on in our government and our political scene. But at another level, we have to, well, we don't have to, but there's a sense that one has to be very, very careful about what they say that might go against the reigning immoral ideology. You can't say ridiculous things like I almost am scared to say it. Men and women are different. Ooh, Andrew, you're going to have to cut that out. I don't want to be quoted as saying that. Or that for a biological male to compete in an all-female sport gives him a tremendous advantage. You're not allowed to say those things. Or if you do, you're taking a chance. You could be canceled. You could be fired. You could risk everything. If you tell an off-color joke that somebody is offended by, or not even an off-color joke, just a joke that somebody's offended by, you can't anticipate whether they're going to be offended. So in a lot of respects, our freedom of speech has been squelched in a different way, I guess, from a dictatorship. But yet at the same time, I guess it's the squelching of the freedom of ideas. That's not my monologue. My monologue is different. And I wanted it to relate to my first email that I'm going to discuss. One way to live a more even-keeled life, to cut back on your distress, your frustration, your emotional reverberations, to just simply live more at peace with existence, is to not expect, now I'll define expect here in a moment, people to behave as you want them to behave. Yes, you would hope they would behave morally. And you would like if they would behave kind toward you or fair or recognize what they do. Yes, that's all something you'd like. But to expect it, to even demand it, you're not going to live even keel. I shrug my shoulders a lot when people around me or folks tell me what somebody has done. I shrug because I don't care? No, that's not it. I shrug because all these years and years and years and years of being a shrink and being alive have taught me you can't make other people behave the way you want them to behave. You can try to influence them, you can try to persuade them, you can reason with them, you can do all of that. But in the end, if they don't, what are you going to do about it? But I just don't want them to do that. I worry. Yes, I understand that part of it. But still, you cannot make someone talk like you want them to talk. Act like you want them to act. Think like you want them to think. That's just not possible. But yet, I would say as a shrink, a high percentage of the upset, the misery, the frustration that people come to me with is because somebody in their lives or somebody's is doing things or saying things in ways they just wish they wouldn't. Why do you have to do that? Why do you have to say that? Why do you have to be like that? Because they are. Dr. Ray, aren't you saying don't you try to influence people? I mean, as Christians, don't we have the obligation to morally try to influence people? Yes, up to a point. When you recognize they don't want to hear it. Our Lord said, shake the dust off your feet. Remember that? He told that to the disciples. That was a sign of, hey, I'm out of here. You can't demand. And that's what it is. People say, I'm not demanding anything. Yes, you are. You're demanding. You so desperately want them to act a certain way that in your mind, you are demanding that they behave differently. You cannot live an even-keeled life, emotionally anyway, if you don't recognize that that is the condition of the human existence. Do I shrug my shoulders a lot when somebody tells me, do you know what he did? Do you know what he said? Do you believe he does that? I go, yeah. Why would he do that? I don't know, but I'm not surprised by it. And part of the irony is, most of the time we get ourselves upset, chronically upset, it's because somebody's doing the same things over and over again, whether it's a spouse or an adult child or a parent. They just keep doing it. And we keep getting upset and keep getting frustrated. Instead of saying, why am I shocked? I certainly got a lot of evidence. This is what they do. This is how they talk. This is how they think. Dr. Ray, you don't have to put yourself there. Well, yes and no. It depends what the relationship is. I mean, if this is a parent, you got to do what you can to try to either get along or tolerate him. You can't just simply say, well, I don't like what they do and I'm writing them off. Or if it's an adult child who's living immorally, can you say, well, you know, the way they're living, that's it. That's just it. Well, then you really have no chance of trying to win them back. Many reasons why people do what they do. And one of those is that they want to. That's pretty much it. They want to. But why do they want to, Dr. Ray? There's got to be a reason why they want to. Well, sometimes to get to the bottom of it, you got to have 10 sessions of therapy. And sometimes that doesn't even do it. You want to live an even-keeled existence? Don't get so frustrated when people don't behave as you wish they would, or think as you wish they would, or believe as you wish they would, or talk as you wish they would. I'm Dr. Ray.
When your children consider going to college, where are you going to find a place that will prepare them for the future and build on the foundation that you've laid? The answer? Ave Maria University. With an authentically Catholic curriculum including 35 majors, AMU prepares students to take on the world.
I've seen the difference in my son since he's been at Ave Maria. He's happy, he's excited about what he's going to do with his degree, and he's living his faith.
Learn more at avemaria.edu. That's avemaria.edu.
Underwritten in part by the following nonprofit.
Are you paying high prices with a traditional health insurance company that pays for things that violate your conscience? There's an alternative available. Solidarity HealthShare is a community of faithful individuals and families that never share into immoral medical services, all while saving you money with prices starting as low as $85 per month for singles and $512 for families. Never fund another abortion with your healthcare dollars. Call 844-313-4999 to learn more.
Do you own popular index mutual funds or ETFs? If so, you're automatically own shares of companies that conflict with your moral beliefs. Ave Maria mutual funds are managed to conform to pro-life and pro-family values. Long-term investors can invest in the no-load Ave Maria mutual funds. The experienced professional portfolio managers make decisions based on investment fundamentals and pro-life values. You can learn more about Ave Maria mutual funds today at 866-AVE-MARIA or visit AveMariaFunds.com.
CMF Curo is a Catholic healthcare ministry providing families nationwide with a better solution centered around whole health, spirit, mind, and body. Our members share their medical burdens within a faith-filled community. At CMF Curo, our members have access to a spiritual director, concierge services, and other health and spiritual resources. Find out if CMF Curo is a better solution for your family. Visit mycatholichealthcare.com. That's mycatholichealthcare.com.
That can bilocate. I do my version of that. I mean, I can't really appear in two different places, but I can bilocute. I can talk in two different places at once. Actually, when you get all the stations on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network, I can omnilocute all over the place. Ubiquitous locute. Ubilocute. Hi, Dr. Ray. I benefited from your episode on tattoos. Yeah, this was some weeks back. It was a topic of great interest to me. I have 3 sons, all in their 30s. Since young boys, I would tell them how God created them, how perfect their bodies were, how they should take care of their bodies, and never do anything to alter or mutilate it. This was before tattoos and piercings became so popular. As far as I can see, none of my boys have tattoos. However, that's the big but. One of my sons has been in a long-term relationship with a woman, few years now, who is tattooed to the max. This is what Mom said. My son and his girlfriend live across the country. My visits with them have been few. Not because of any malintent, maliciousness, just probably geographical factors. I once asked my son about the themes of his girlfriend's tattoos as I saw a close-up of her tattoos on Facebook. And I was horrified. He said it reflected her interest in horror and artistic work as she does part-time work for photography, film, etc. The very limited time that my husband and I have spent time with her, she's been respectful and covers up as much as clothing allows. Okay, so she knows that this bothers Mom a lot, and she's not in your face with the tattoos. She's trying to be respectful on this. We are kind and welcoming toward her. However, she keeps her distance. All right, now, I jump in there a second. When somebody tells me I'm kind and welcoming toward her, but the other person's cool. I think, a lot of things could be going on, but 2 of the more prominent ones. There's a coolness to the kind and welcome. We may see ourselves as kind and welcoming, but maybe we're not as much as we think we are. Now, That's not saying we're not kind and not welcoming, just maybe not as kind and welcoming. Just a speculation, I don't know. She keeps her distance. Well, obviously she knows what you think about her tattoos. She knows that. So she figures it's just easier not to be around you. That's quite common. It's the old, you may not say anything, but I know how you think. As a practicing Catholic, I pray for her, I've offered masses for her, and I pray to not judge her. Okie dokie, there's a key line. I pray, Lord, help me not judge her. So if you're praying not to judge her, the question becomes, are you giving off any vibes? Again, I'm not saying you do. I'm just simply saying this is a question you got to ask yourself. Now here's the crux of the whole thing. I don't know why, Dr. Ray, but I have a strong sense that a portal of evil has been cracked open. No facts, just a mother's sorrowful heart. Let me talk here a couple things. You can't know if a portal of evil has been cracked open. You don't know what else she does. All right? These tattoos are obviously ugly and scurrilous. However, you don't want them. You're hoping they don't reflect her mindset. Dr. Ray, how could they not reflect her mindset? She's put it on her body. Okay, let's just say they do. They reflect her mindset. That still doesn't mean she's cracked open a portal of evil. You can't go looking at somebody and saying, well, I don't have any reason to think this. I don't have any facts. But, I'm just wondering if you're sliding on the demonic side. You got to be real careful about that. You got to be real careful about that. Then she says this. The thought that a grandchild can potentially be cradled in the arms of his mother and gazing at scary images makes me conjure up negative thoughts. Dr. Ray, I know these thoughts are not productive. No, they're not. I got to tell you, I agree with you on that one. I also have avoided this subject with my son. What suggestions do you have for me as a parent of an adult son who is involved, living with someone who keeps her distance? Well, given everything you've said, given the level of your distress, which goes beyond, I'm really unhappy that she's so tatted up, but I think it signifies there could be some dark stuff floating around her. Given that, my guess would be that it's been hard for you. It's been really hard for you not to, and if she's hypersensitive, she's going to pick up on it, hard for you not to give off vibes. I don't know that, but my guess would be. And you also say she keeps her distance. And my own angst with this matter of her concerning tattoo images. I think, for all parties considered, do your very best to ignore the tattoos. Do your very best not to project that at some point, 4 years from now, if she has a child, this little 3-year-old is going to be looking and saying, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And I think, you didn't say this, but I think you're thinking, is this going to mess this kid's head up? What is going on here? You can't think like that. I mean, you're taking this too far. I'm not saying there couldn't be complications. But what I'm saying is for you to anticipate all that is essentially putting emotional distance between not only you and her, but I'll bet between you and her and your son. I don't think you can hide it. At least from what you're saying here, it doesn't sound like you can. So you got to do everything in your power to accept her as your son's girlfriend, even though you don't like they're living together, even though like she's tatted up. I got that. This goes back to she's not behaving as you want her to behave. Now, you may say, yeah, but she's behaving bad. Perhaps. But at the same time, your best move is to do everything you can to treat her as though you do not see those tattoos. I can't do that, Dr. Ray. Yes, you can. Of course you can. Might take a little practice. And don't think your son doesn't know where you're at. Come on. You raised him. You emphasize to him in so many ways, don't do this to your body. It's God's temple. Don't do this. That was the message you gave him. So he knows exactly what you think. Not only does she have tattoos all over the place, but she's got some kind of scary ones. Got it. But at this point, all you're doing, and you say you see him maybe once or twice a year, all you're doing in between time is being miserable about it, speculating on all the awful, terrible things that could happen, and probably making it so that your son could be more comfortable if you're not around. I'm just guessing. But you could be. You could be teaching him that. I got time to take this one? A longtime friend lost her 29-year-old son 1 year ago. I've been there for her as much as possible. I lost my nephew when he was just 19, and I appreciate my friend's grief. She's angry, despondent, and is isolating herself. She is nasty and lashes out at anyone who tries to help her. Many have already been turned away. She is so deeply wounded. Yeah, I imagine she's blaming God. The last time I called her, she ranted and raved and said she wanted to, quote, surrender to go, which implied she was having suicidal thoughts. Dr. Ray, this is way beyond my ability to counsel. Much as I empathize and do not take things personally, her cloud of despair lingers for hours after we connect, and it takes me a while to bounce back. My husband said this is not good for my own mental health and suggests that I text or email instead of calling for a while. How can you be there for someone without drowning in their misery? Well, it comes down to if she just relentlessly wants to say, I'm miserable, I don't want to do anything to not be miserable, God has mistreated me, I don't know if I want any part of a God who allows things like this to happen. If that is the theme of every contact, you're right. You can't do much. If somebody came into my office and had that attitude, I'd be honest with them. I'd say, I don't know what I can do to help you because I'm not sure that you want to change some of this. Tell me that you do, or show me that you do. I think that if she's angry, sounds like there's some hostility floating around and intermixed in between her despondency. I'm sure you've suggested to her, do you want to go to counseling? And I would guess that she's either said a token yes or has no intention to. Because the counselor wouldn't understand. Nobody understands. Nobody's lost a child. Nobody knows what I'm going through. It could be. It could very well be. At this point, I think you're getting pulled into a dark vortex that you can't get out of. You're probably right that your contacts be fewer and farther between. You could tell her, I don't know what to do to help you. Professionals might be able to help you. I'm not sure I can.
60 Seconds with Father Mitch Pacwa.
This communion with Jesus and with one another, that being united to him and abiding in him, that is the indispensable condition for bearing fruit. That's why our Lord says, back in John 15, verse 5, apart from me, you can do nothing. If you're not united to Christ, you're not going to do anything for him. So communion with Jesus, our Savior, focusing on him and getting to know him and be known by him, that is what makes it possible for us to bear fruit as Christians. And communion with others is the most magnificent fruit that the branches can give. That's one of the things that he's looking for from us, that we have a communion with one another, that we have a love and a concern. Does it mean we agree with one another? Not necessarily.
The people you know and trust are on EWTN.
Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo.
We make no bones here at EWTN and Ave Maria Radio that we are Catholic and that we are here to educate the Catholic faith. So we're very clear as to whom and what we represent. But you can't hide behind a title like the secular media do, claiming they're a news operation when it's nothing but propaganda for particular causes. It goes back to the pride of not admitting that maybe we need to look in the mirror and change some things. And I know from a personal perspective, I dug in my heels in terms of not wanting to leave the secular media. Oh no, I have a better plan. If you could just keep me here and let me make the big bucks, and I'll still do my Christian thing here and there, we can be besties, God. It took me 3 years to finally say, I am yours, I was made for you, what do you want me to do?
Catholic Connections, Teresa Tomeo. Weekdays, 9 a.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Nip it in the bud.
This is why I don't relate to my call screener, Eric Dumont. He had the audacity, some might call it ignorance, to say, who is that and where does it come from? He didn't know it was Barney from the Andy Griffith Show. This is why I don't talk to these young people. We just don't have anything in common. All right, let me go over here to what we got. I'm going to go to the phone now because I got to figure out. All right, he says, good morning, Dr. Ray. The following are mostly rhetorical questions. No need to answer them unless you'd like. Just venting. I've been listening, but have not heard my question discussed. Unless I missed it. He says, I am a dude after all, and my attention span is not that great. Hope you are not using me just to add to your half dozen or so listeners. It's not a half dozen or so. It's well over 100. In essence, what I want to know is therapy and familial support and love better in the long run with meds than meds? I think there's a typo here. With the same therapy and support. Don't the studies show a higher percentage of full recovery from mental illness for the former scenario? Okay. That's the generic question. Then he's going to get personal here in a second. It depends upon the condition. If there is a psychotic condition, whether that is a thought psychosis or a mood psychosis, medication is very helpful. Very, extremely so. Okay, extremely so. Church isn't against it. For the most part, a combination of counseling, therapy, and medication for many conditions has proven itself to be the best route. However, for example, let's say that someone has agoraphobia. They're just afraid to go out. They just go out. They're more and more they're avoiding places. And typically they'll get some kind of medication to temper their anxiety. But in the long run, that's not doing anything for all of the things they're telling themselves about their fears. So in that case, for the long-term cure, if you will, they're going to have to go through some kind of counseling, therapy, behavior modification, something, as opposed to just medicating the anxiety. It may temporarily alleviate some of it. He says this: my current situation is that my daughter is doing well. Not 100% her old self, whatever that means. One can be their old self. Oh, can one be their old self after an episode like that and while taking antipsychotics? Okay, I don't know what the episode is, but apparently she's taking antipsychotics because she must have had some kind of psychotic incident. Her most recent diagnosis is bipolar. I believe with the word manic somewhere in there. Okay. More likely, you're going to get psychotic agitation with a manic episode. Grandiose thinking, perhaps hallucinations, conduct that is high level energy. Okay. I put her diagnosis in quotes, and he did. You can't see that. He said diagnosis, quote. Is it really a diagnosis after a brief meeting and discussing symptoms and looking up the diagnostic label and subjectively deciding on which one? And he says, which, by the way, comes to the DSM. Yeah, DSM-5. How can someone meet 3 or more different prescriber therapists and get 3 different diagnoses? Are they reliable? Well, that's one of the things. Validity and reliability are 2 things you look for in a clinical conclusion, especially a clinical diagnosis. One of the problems with reliability is, yes, professionals, as they are called, can see someone and the situation can be fuzzy enough, complex enough, that they home in on different aspects of the picture. Now, it's pretty easy to diagnose bipolar, manic type, because the behavior is so out of the norm. I mean, you're hearing voices, or if you're staying up for 4 nights in a row because you got so much energy, or if you're doing all kinds of crazy type of things, yeah, it's pretty easy to get a history and make that diagnosis, and it's reasonably reliable. So what you seem to be saying is that, well, we're not really quite sure, and obviously I can't know because I don't know much more than just what you said about the diagnosis. He goes on. My main frustration is that even if there was some reality to my daughter's mental illness, disorder, disease, nowhere like Alzheimer's or cerebral palsy, from which there is no cure or recovery from, how can I support her to full recovery? Which happens all the time, as you know, and I personally witness in my own circle. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes you can get into a chronic psychotic condition. When she appears to have bought into the idea that all she is this label that someone gave her who's telling her she needs meds to deal with this incurable disease, most likely forever. I see the results. I hear her responses when I contradict her perception of herself. Until I discuss this with my therapist, yes, I started seeing one to help me sort through all this. Hopefully, he'll understand where I'm coming up. Okay, what he's saying is, I don't know what's going on with my daughter. And you're right, I didn't know he was seeing a therapist till this last part of this e-person, so I don't want to say too much. I can generically give some instruction on this. It's really going to come down to the reliability of the diagnosis. And it is also going to come down to how much his daughter is latching on to the diagnosis, even when she's in somewhat remission, which he said she is, because the medication has worked, to explain all of her behavior. It's not unusual for a person to have a serious mental disorder, but yet at the same time also make a lot of bad decisions when they're not actively psychotic. I don't know how much that is the scenario. I don't know how reliable the diagnosis is. Although, one thing you can say here, Dad, is that if the medication has alleviated her manic symptoms, that's a pretty good indication that something in her neurology is going on, that the medication helped. We don't really always know exactly how, but it helped. Then on top of that, maybe her own counseling can help her to make better decisions in the context of this diagnosis.
Christ is the answer, with Father John Riccardo.
John chapter 11, verses 21 to 26. This is the story of Lazarus. Lazarus has died. Lazarus is one of his best friends. Just before this passage, we hear the news that Martha and Mary send word to Jesus that the one you love is sick. And the next line in the scripture is, now because Jesus loved Martha and Mary and Lazarus, he stayed where he was. His friend's in need. He can heal. They've seen him heal before. And yet somehow, because he loves him, he stays. And Lazarus dies. And then Jesus shows up 3 days later and is greeted by Martha and Mary, who confront him with the words, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would never have died. Rather applicable for many of us in our lives. We ask the Lord to do one thing because we're certain it is what we think is best, when in fact he has something which far surpasses what we asked for. The challenge is, in waiting for that to happen, we go through very trying times, which oftentimes makes us wonder, does he really care?
The following program is brought to you in part by MyCatholicWill.com. Surveys show that more than half of Americans do not have a will. At MyCatholicWill.com, it takes as little as 15 minutes to write your will and secure a legacy of faith. MyCatholicWill.com is the exclusive online destination for creating a Catholic will. The process of writing a will is simple and now more accessible than ever. MyCatholicWill.com, a legacy of faith for those you love.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
And we need to pray for all our world leaders and all those who are in such danger. See, in a day and age where people are getting further away from God, you get further away from goodness. Only God is good. You remember what our Lord said one day? Why do you call me good? He said, only God is good. Only God.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
You know, there's a lot of pressure doing this program. Not so much that I can be confused and flummoxed by caller situation. That's routine. But it's because I can be in error regarding details of something I might say. To draw a parallel or to make an observation about something. Let me illustrate what I mean. Dear Dr. Ray, as a daily listener, I enjoy your insight, but yesterday you really had me shaking my head. All right? Now, I'm waiting. As I'm reading this, I'm thinking, okay, what exactly did I say? All right. Hate to think it was one of my insights that was wrong, but that could be. It happened once, 1984, I think it was. I know you are from Ohio. So is Yankee legend Thurman Munson, rest his soul. That's true. I'm going to got that part right. We have Thurman Munson Stadium. Also, I remember when Thurman Munson crashed his plane at the Akron-Canton Airport. I was playing softball, and I was probably, somewhere in my 20s. And Munson was a Yankee great, And his wife still lives not far from me. Okay, sorry. But I just don't understand how any man's man, all right, especially one who is so into softball, and most softballers I know tend to have a clue about baseball. All right, I'm being skewered here. Can confuse Shea Stadium with Yankee Stadium, the house that Ruth built, which was the cathedral of baseball in the Bronx for well over 80 years. Though I have learned not to take the new, now woke professional sports too seriously anymore, I still could not help but shake my head. How could you, a man's man with your intelligence, confuse that? Sincerely, Thomas. P.S. A reminder, Dr. Ray, the Dodgers no longer play in Ebbets Field. I knew that. I must have confused that. Yeah, I apparently did. I was talking about Yankee Stadium. The Shea Stadium's where the Mets played, right? Oh boy, hope Thomas isn't listening now, because I go, even when I corrected you, you got it wrong. And let's see what else I got in the stack here. Some of these are. Let me try this one. My friend's daughter, who is in her early 20s, has become involved in Scientology. She is planning to go to Africa on a mission with this group. My friend and her daughter are Catholic. My friend has tried to explain to her daughter that Scientology is incompatible with Catholicism. The daughter says she could be Catholic and still be in Scientology. Well, no, she can't. Whose mission is to help people. Well, she can be Catholic and help people, and maybe those in this Scientology group can want to help people too. The mother has been going to Scientology sessions for a year or so and has been recruited to join the mission to Africa. Earlier on, the daughter refused to commit to a mission, but now she's going to go. Do you have any advice that would help this young woman escape from the grasp of this group? Prayers and attempted persuasion. See, that's always the question. Have you talked to her? Have you asked her about it? Do you know why she's doing it? And how resistant is she? This goes back to my opening monologue where I talked about you can't make people behave the way you want, even if you see them on a self-destructive path. The daughter has said that she doesn't want to break up or lose her family over this. She believes she can keep her family, keep her Catholic faith, and work in Scientology. Well, you can hope she sees that she can't. Do you have any advice? Can you recommend any resources? I don't know any books that would compare Scientology's precepts with the Catholics. I'm sure they're out there. You got to search for them. Here's the problem. You left off what mom's going to do. Okay? It said the mom has been going to Scientology sessions and has been recruited. But what's she going to do? Is she going to go? And it sounds like, and this is not unusual, people define the Catholic faith all kinds of ways. And if it has a superficial resemblance, this quote-unquote mission trip to help folks in Africa has a superficial resemblance to the Catholic outreach of missions to help, then the daughter's convincing herself. I would probably, if you're going to talk to her any further, assuming she wants to even hear you, I would probably ask, well, does Scientology believe that the Eucharist is Christ? does Scientology believe that Jesus was God? Does Scientology believe, and then you can list any number of morals that the Catholic Church teaches, and just get her to answer it. You don't have to dispute her. Just get her to answer it. If she says, I don't think that's important, then she's telling you how she thinks. What are you going to do? But I would, if she lets you talk to her again, and she probably won't, but if you do, I would just ask her, I'm curious about Scientology. Help me understand this. Does Scientology teach this? Does Scientology teach that? Does Scientology teach this? And you always just simply ask if it teaches the same things, major things, that the church teaches. That's what I would do. I'm Dr. Ray.
You're just so great. I love your show.
All the advice, none of the bills. Come in. The doctor is in.
Underwritten in part by the following nonprofit.
Are you paying high prices with a traditional health insurance company that pays for things that violate your conscience? There's an alternative available. Solidarity HealthShare is a community of faithful individuals and families that never share into immoral medical services, all while saving you money with prices starting as low as $85 per month for singles and $512 for families. Never fund another abortion with your healthcare dollars. Call 844-313-4999 to learn more.
Ave Maria Radio's Good News Cruise is more popular than ever. Every year, couples testify how their marriages are revitalized and transformed. The 2026 cruise is already 3/4 full, so if you want to join, now is the time. Special guests include musicians Andrea Bocelli, Matt Maher, Sarah Kroger, and John Ignati, as well as hosts from Ave Maria Radio. Fun, romance, devotion. Go to AveMariaRadio.net and click on the Travel tab to find out more.
Brought to you by the nonprofit Seton Home Study.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Ray Guarendi here. You thinking about homeschooling? Seton Homeschooling. 40 years of experience, 17,000 current students, pre-K through high school. They provide the books, the lesson plans, the counselors, the grading services, the tests. That's right, pretty much everything. My wife and I use Seton. Some of our children. I'll tell you this, 2 of them got perfect ACT scores in verbal. And overall, the Seton students scored more than 100 points above average on the SAT. Over 30% higher on English and reading on the ACT. It's a rigorous program. You want to give the very best to your kids? Trust me on this one. Go with Seton. It is a beautifully rigorous academic program. Go to SetonHome.org. That is SetonHome.org. Got time for one more. Dear Dr. Ray, it's been almost 3 years since my older brother died in a truck train accident. As I studied his Army discharge paper, I noticed the initials in the space for authority and reason. Apparently, okay, I don't know if he was just honorably discharged. I don't know what the reasons for the discharge. SPD. After researching this, I found out what it means. Sensory processing disorder. Okay, let me stop right there. It's not an official disorder. All right. It has been catapulted into public profile by, speech therapists, perhaps, sometimes occupational therapists. But it's kind of a catch-all category that says this person just doesn't interpret incoming information like we would expect them to. All right, that's said. She says, how could we not know? It was a little different. I just figured, because he became the head of the family at age 9 after our father died in Vietnam, I just thought he shut down because he was in grief and in over his head. My mom didn't push him because when he was 1 month old, he stopped breathing. Okay, so they talk about some health problems. Mom didn't know if he suffered from brain damage, so she kind of favored him. Can you explain why we didn't see this disability? Well, yeah, because it's a vague, fuzzy thing. And you looked at your brother and you said, yeah, there's some hiccups in his development, but you didn't know what to make of them. And even if you would have called him sensory processing disorder, so what? It's who he is. You can't go in there and fix his brain. You deal with him and you raise him. So, no, you couldn't have known. You'd have no way of knowing. And further, it's a vague diagnosis that even now when people fling it around more than they should, you still can't necessarily know. I concluded his obituary. Okay, I don't want to do all through that. Let me see. Michael was a miracle. It sounds like there was some kind of early on struggles with development. It says here, the second miracle was when he died. It was believed that something must have happened in the cab. Could it have been a heart attack, stroke, aneurysm while driving the Freightliner tractor pulling a dump trailer? So in other words, apparently what happened is he crashed into a train and did something in him, something health-wise. If that is what happened, Dr. Ray, then that truck was a runaway rig. If so, the thing that stopped the truck was the train. If the truck had hit perhaps a vehicle, passenger vehicle, someone else might have died. Whew. Okay. The crux of the question is, why didn't we see it? Well, who could expect you to see it? As I said, it's a vague diagnosis. It's really not an official one. And it just means that there were some indications that developmentally your brother had some struggles. And perhaps you said your mother favored him. So I don't know to what degree she pampered him, made excuses for him. I have no idea. It sounds like he was discharged from the Army prematurely, or maybe not. Maybe he just served his time and left. Don't know. But I would not at all question your inability to see that. I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't see it a lot of times. I would probably be tempted to say, yeah, this young child, this person, this teenager is, there's some things in their personality that's oddities or maybe eccentricities or things that are making learning a little more tough for them. Yeah, I mean, you could say that. I mean, that's who the person is. But by calling it something, by saying sensory processing disorder, it creates the illusion that you know what's going on. Why does he act that way? Well, he has sensory processing disorder. Well, how do you know he has sensory processing disorder? Because he acts that way. You see the circle? I would drop that question. I would simply say that my brother had a history. Said he was born in 1956, so that would make him 68 when he passed away. My brother had a history of perhaps some struggles in life, some turbulence. And I know what you're saying here. You're saying, if we would have seen it, could we have corrected it? No. Because you could have dealt with who he was and what he was thinking and doing, but that still doesn't mean that you could have altered it significantly if he didn't want it to be altered. So the blame is not upon you or your mom. Not at this point. And furthermore, I don't know who put that diagnosis on him. Probably one of the Army doctors. But at this point, I see a lot of young kids who get this diagnosis, and I say, who gave them that diagnosis? Because it just means, I have this struggle interpreting sensory input, maybe expressing things. And to some level, we all do. We all do. And the question becomes, okay, how much and when does it interfere? Okay. I got to go. I've only got about 20 seconds left before the music starts. And I do appreciate very much you keep me company on this E-Person Monday. I don't have to explain why I call it person. I want to thank Eric Dumont, who's over there manning the boards. Kind of sounds like basketball lingo, doesn't it? Manning the boards. Well, you can also use it in radio lingo. So he took care of everything. And I know, Eric, when you say 20, that's to the end of the show or to the music. You always get that one confused. It's to the music, which means I have to talk some more. Okay, music. Maestro, thank you for joining me. Walk with God. Hold your kids tight by the hand if you got them.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.